there's disputes over the worms looking up at the four caliphs and trying to see who is highest and why and in what way. But another issue that arises is Abu Bakr and Ali. We know that Imam Ali is basically the fountainhead of the Sunni Sufi tariqas. But the Naqshbandis believe that Abu Bakr is the first figure in the silsila, and the Naqshbandiya are the largest, probably, tariqa and have a considerable extent in this country. So sometimes popularly this is taken to be a kind of tension, but it's not. And I want to explain how this works, drawing attention once again to the mainstream Islamic desire to reconcile, ittilaf, to bring people together, by looking at one of the great works of the 19th century, Naqshbandiya, the Sheikh with two intermediaries of Sheikh Asad Erbili, who we looked at earlier in his poem on Hazrati Fatima radiallahu anha. And this is Maulana Khalid, dies in 1826, buried in the Kurdish district of Damascus, and the scholar who really revives the Naqshbandiya throughout the Middle East and Turkey. Not so much the Balkans. The Naqshbandi lines in the Balkans tend to function in a different way, and sometimes it's an older version of the Naqshbandiya, as I understand it. But yeah, Maulana Khalid, and he has this diwan, one of the great monuments of Naqshbandi literature. It's mostly in Persian. And he begins with his munajat. I'd like to just read a little bit from this, where he is explaining how the Siddiqi affiliation of the Naqshbandiya works with the Alid affiliation of the tradition of the Ahlul Bayt. And it's important, I think, to understand this, not only to look at the mechanics of how the silsila works, but also to see the the mindset which wants to bring about a kind of concordist solution. So this is how his great poem starts. It's long, we won't be able to look at much of it, but we'll take it at least as far as the Imam, where the silsilas seem to come together, which a lot of people really misunderstand. This is Munajat. خداوندا بحق اسم أعظم بنور سيد أولاد آدم. I'll do a rough translation. Oh my God, by the sanctity of the greatest names, by the light of the master of the children of Adam. So he's beginning with a kind of munajat, or invocation, reminding us and reminding the divine object of the poem is an address to God of what is truly great in his creation. بسوز سینه صدیق اکبر به سلمان و به قاسم بار دیگر. So verse 2 is, by the virtue of the flame of light which is in the soul of the Siddiq, by the virtue of Salmani Farisi and Qasim. Okay. This is really important for all the Naqshbandi silsilas. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, ثاني اثنين ثم في الغار, this great companion of the chosen one, according to the Naqshbandi stories, the key spirituality of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq was to do the dhikr silently, which is what most Naqshbandis do, whereas the tariqas that take their lineage through Imam Ali very often will use jahri, spoken or sung forms of dhikr. But figure number 2 in the chain, Salman al-Farisi. Figure number three is Al-Qasim, is Qasim bin Muhammad bin Abu Bakr. He dies round about the year 107 of the Hijrah. is actually an important figure, one of the great muftis and hadith scholars of his time. There's a lot of his hadiths in Sahih Muslim, for instance, regarded as one of the 7 fuqaha of Medina, studied under Abu Huraira, Abdullah bin Amr ibn al-As, some of the great ones, some of the great isnads come through him. Al-Qasim has 3 daughters who are famed for their piety and their scholarship. One of them is called Farwa, and she marries Imam Muhammad al-Baqir and therefore becomes the mother of Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq. So if you can get your mind around the kind of family tree situation here, Ja'far al-Sadiq's mother is the great-granddaughter of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. Incidentally, her mother was a certain Asma bint Abdurrahman bin Abu Bakr, who is also from the lineage of Abu Bakr. So she's a kind of double great-granddaughter of Abu Bakr, and this is, from the Naqshbandi point of view, why there isn't really a tension, because Ja'far as-Sadiq has this very powerful stream of irfan and knowledge and wisdom and Siddiqiyya coming from Abu Bakr, as well as through the formal lineage through Muhammad al-Baqir, Ali Zain al-Abidin, Imam Hussein and Imam Ali. So that's really important. The Naqshi golden chain, which goes on to the present day through Baha'uddin Naqshband, Abdul Khaliq Urj Divani and so forth, goes back to Ja'far as-Sadiq, who we tend to think of, if you don't really look into the sources, as the 6th Imam of the Shia. Well, too big and capacious a soul to be just limited to that perspective, but also 4th figure in the golden chain of the Naqshbandiyya, who we always associate as being the Sunni tariqah par excellence. But when you look into these texts, you'll see that for somebody like Maulana Khalid, it's not like that. It's not Sunnah against Shia, except for some exoterists who are dividers. Instead, the spiritual lineages of Islam interact and flow, and certainly doesn't seem to have been a problem for Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq that he had the lineage of Abu Bakr Siddiq. So let's read a little bit more of this, because it's something that Naqshbandis in particular want to emphasize, the affiliation to Imam Ja'far. بشاه صفتر کرار حیدر کی از نیرویش شد باب خیبر. By the noble king who overcame the ranks of the powerful enemy, Haydar, the lion, who with his own bare strength carried on his back the gate of the citadel of Khaybar. نبود فصلی بی روزگاری زارش که عزرائیل و در بی زلفی کارش. Hazrat Ali karamallahu wajhahu was the one who was so successful in the fortunes of war in using his sword Dhul Fiqar that it was as if he was the angel of death, Azrail. به آن سرو گلستانی نبوت به آن شمع شبستانی فتوت. He was the tall cypress tree in the Prophet's garden, the lamp in the palace of Futuwa, that manly virtue. So we'll have to fast forward. Verse 12, Muhammad Baqir an koh mufakhir ke az nahrirish guften Baqir. The one who was the summit of nobility and glory and the plunged the very depths of knowledge, al-Baqir, by his merit. And then بحق مجمع البحرين أنوار كشد رازي صديق علي بار. So by the right of he who was the Majma al-Bahrain, the one who is the point at which the two oceans come together, which was the way of the Siddiq and the way of Ali. So this is the understanding of what Imam Ja'far was. Imam Sadiq fi Masduq Ja'far Ka'in do mansab ura shud muyassar. Imam Sadiq, the one who is also Masduq, the one who is believed, Ja'far, who in this has the two roles, and this was made easy for him. So Ja'far al-Sadiq, the commentary here has of course the details of the family tree. Ja'far al-Sadiq, on the father's line, Muhammad al-Baqir, Ali Zain al-Abidin, Hazrati Hussein, Hazrati Ali. It's an esoteric thing that for some later generations became the basis of an exoteric madhab. And through the mother's line, Farwa, this scholar luminary of Medina, Qasim, Muhammad, Hazrati Abu Bakr. So there's that filiation as well, the mother and the father. Yeah. Anyway, then the Imam goes on. It's a very long, beautiful poem, but he really wants to emphasize this. He's a figure of considerable political importance in the Ottoman Empire, spends a lot of time in Iraq, which is why they call him Khalidi-Baghdadi, where of course even in those days there's Shi'i districts, Sunni districts, and as a Naqshi Sufi he really wants to create this way of overcoming that binary and demonstrating that Ali is the city of knowledge for the Naqshbandis as well as he is for anybody else. So just to finish a little bit with the